So what do you say we spend a little time in the garden today? All right. So the other day I was walking around out here amongst all my 10 plots, and I was looking at the calendar on my phone for some reason or another, and just kind of hit me. I was like, man, I've got just a month before I need to be planting Irish potatoes here. It just kind of jumped on me that, man, I need to start getting my potato plot ready. Here in South Georgia, our ideal time to plant Irish potatoes is around Valentine's Day, middle of February, although we can plant towards the end of February. There's a 2 or 3 week window there we can get them planted, but I've got to get my plot ready so I can get them in the ground when the time is right. So today I want to walk around to all these 10 plots here and kind of give you an idea of my thought process as we determine where we're going to plant our Irish potatoes. Now later on in a few weeks we'll do a video where we'll kind of map out all 10 plots and kind of go through what we're planning on putting in each plot. But potatoes is the first kind of warm season or early season crop we'll be putting in the ground, so that one takes first priority. We'll figure out where we're going to put our potatoes, and then we'll figure out where we're going to put everything else later. Now, if you've watched a lot of the videos on our channel, you know that we believe in practicing good crop rotation around here. Down here in the south, our pest pressure is high with diseases and insects, and so crop rotation is one of those important things that we can do to kind of alleviate some of that pressure. And with that crop rotation, our main goal is to not plant the same family of plants in the same spot in consecutive years. Now, if we can not plant the same family in the same spot for 2 or 3 years, that's even better, but at least we want to try to not plant the same family of crops in the same spot in consecutive years. That's why we have so many plots out here. We're not always growing vegetables in every single plot. A lot of times we're just cover cropping or rehabbing some of the plots, but having so many plots allows us to practice better crop rotation. And that's why I always tell people, if you've got a big spot for a garden, it's easier to break it up into little subplots. It's going to make it a lot easier for your crop rotation. And even if you got a small scale garden, if you've got 5 or 6 raised beds, that's good because you've got separate areas where you can practice your crop rotation and not plant the same family there season after season. Now, as far as that crop rotation goes, there are a few families we have to worry about. Those are the ones that are really susceptible to pests and diseases, especially down here, and we certainly want to make sure we rotate those. So some of the families we have to be concerned about with crop rotation. Number one is probably cucurbits, because there's so many different cucurbits we can plant. We have to be careful not to put cucurbits everywhere, because then we really can't rotate them. So we're talking about things like cucumbers, squash, summer squash, winter squash, pumpkins, watermelons, cantaloupes, all that good stuff, gourds. There's lots of cucurbits out there, and we definitely want to make sure we don't put those in the same plot year after year. Another family that we have to be concerned about is nightshades. That includes potatoes, which is what we're talking about today, your peppers, your tomatoes, your eggplant. Those can have some pest pressure, some disease pressure on them, so we don't want to plant those in the same spot year over year. Those are probably the 2 big ones. We also have other big crop families like your brassicas, all your greens and stuff that we're planting kind of this time of year during the fall and winter months. You got your alliums. We try to keep all those in the same plot, our onions, our garlic, our leeks, all that good stuff. And then the other one to consider is probably the legumes. So all your beans and peas and stuff, we try to rotate them as well and kind of keep those in the same plot so we can rotate them. And then you've got corn. And corn, we don't have a ton of pest and disease issues on that, with the exception of corn earworms, but corn is pretty demanding of the soil as far as, you know, the nutrients it needs. So we definitely want to rotate corn and not plant it in the same spot, because it is pretty demanding on the soil. And after we grow corn, we want to make sure we come in there and cover crop that area and kind of rehab that soil and kind of replenish those nutrients there. So now let's talk about where we're going to be putting our Irish potatoes. Let's start off with these 2 plots here behind me. We've got this kind of small 20 by 30 plot, and that kind of longer, skinnier plot that's about 20 by 60. And this is where we planted our Irish potatoes last year. Now, I had a few issues with too much rain after I planted them, and each plot wasn't completely full of potatoes, but we did have some or a few rows of potatoes in each plot. So we certainly don't want to plant potatoes in either of these plots this year, so these two are eliminated. And then here we've got two plots which kind of run together, but I consider them two separate plots. And for the most part in these two plots, we've got this, what I call the ultimate cover crop cocktail planted. And it's still kicking along, but not as big as I want it to be yet. We've had a cooler than normal winter down here in South Georgia. And so I kind of want to let that cover crop grow a little more before I incorporate it into the soil. So these plots wouldn't quite be ready to plant potatoes. Another thing is, in this one back here, that's where I planted tomatoes last year. Tomatoes are in the same family as potatoes, so I definitely don't want to plant potatoes there. Here, I don't think I had any nightshades last year or the year before that, so I could plant them here, but like I said, I want that cover crop to mature a little bit more before we go to turning over that plot. Over here in these 6 plots we call the Dream Garden, we might find a more suitable candidate for a potato plot. We've got this plot right here which has chickpeas and then some kind of random brassicas in there as a part of that cover crop. And this one would actually work. Actually, no it wouldn't. I grew peppers here last year. So we had nightshades here last year and don't want to plant more nightshades there this year. So that one is out of the question. Also, this is where I'm planning to plant all kind of different flowers and stuff come spring. So I kind of already had this plot planned out, but I forgot about the peppers being there. Definitely don't want to plant potatoes after peppers since they're in the same family. So this plot is eliminated. And then we've got this guy right here, which is a cover crop of frosty persimmon clover that is just lush and beautiful. Now, I don't think, actually I'm pretty sure, I've never grown nightshades in this plot. This plot's, only been here for a couple years. Never grown nightshades in there. I've grown some winter squash in there. I grew some brassicas in there. I grew some corn in there last year, but I've never grown any nightshades in this plot. So this plot would work. However, I really don't want to see that clover go quite yet. And since it's so cool out here, if I were to try to turn over all this biomass here, it's probably going to take a little longer than it normally would, just because we haven't had any warm weather to kind of break down all that material. So if I did decide to use this plot, I might be short on time as far as getting all that stuff broken down. And like I said, this is just too pretty to mess with right now, so I'm just going to leave that there, not mess with that, and we'll save that for something else. This plot right here has all alliums in it: onions, garlic, and leeks. And these aren't going to be out of here by the time we plant potatoes. We won't harvest these onions till maybe March or April or so. Same thing with the garlic. Leeks look like they're going to take a little longer since we've had such a cool winter. So this plot is definitely out of the question, because this stuff is still going to be here when we do decide to plant potatoes in a month or so. And then we've got our no-till experimental plot here, where we have mostly brassicas, a little bit of lettuce planted right now. And most of this stuff is finishing up. We're about to get ready to harvest all of our broccoli, cauliflower, the rest of the cabbage out of here. So this plot should be cleaned up and ready to go come mid-February to plant potatoes in here. And never grown nightshades. Actually, I did 2 years ago. I grew some peppers in this plot. So it wouldn't be consecutive years of planting nightshades. If I got in a just space crunch, I could plant potatoes here if I wanted to. However, I'm doing this no-till experiment here, and I'm trying to not disturb that soil as much as possible. And I know putting potatoes in is going to be, a little bit of disturbance there. So to preserve the sanctity of my no-till plot here, I'm going to spare it from the potatoes this season, and we might end up planting potatoes in it, in the next few years, but not right now. We want to kind of leave that soil undisturbed for as long as possible. So we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here. Only got 2 plots left. Still haven't found somewhere to plant our Irish potatoes. Plot number 9 here, we've got Brussels sprouts, kale, collards, and carrots on the end there. And the Brussels sprouts, I don't think they're going to be done by mid-February. Be pretty close. Starting to see some sprout formation there, but not sure they'll be completely finished by then. The collards and the kale, we'll leave those there, and those will grow, you know, on up to when it gets hot in May or so. So we don't want to get those out of there because those are going to keep producing. And our carrots over there, while we've started pulling some of the smaller ones, they'll still be there probably in another month or so. We just kind of pull those as we need them. They hold pretty well in the soil this time of year. So we can't really ditch this plot for potatoes because there's still a lot of valuable produce there. So we've got one plot left, and hopefully this is the one. If we think back what we've planted here, the 2 years this plot has been here, the first year we planted squash and cucumbers in here, so cucurbit family. Last year we planted okra in here, which is the mallow family. Between those two, I think last winter we had brassicas in here, so we've never planted any nightshades in here, which is good. And this plot is almost ready. This is where we had our mustard cover crop, and on a previous video we showed you how we mowed that and tilled that into the soil. I also talked about on that video how tilling that mustard not only helps with your nematode pressure, but it has some allelopathic effects on weeds too. And we haven't done anything to this plot since we tilled it in a month or so ago, and there's no weeds out there. A few of those radishes and mustard plants have re-sprouted, just a couple of them, but no weeds. Great thing about that mustard cover crop, you don't really have to worry about anything for a while after you till it into the soil. So one more little light cultivation should have that plot ready. We know we got a lot of good organic matter there, you know, nice soft soil for those potatoes. We don't want to really grow potatoes in hard soil. We want some nice soft friable soil. So this is the winner right here. Took us all the way around the garden to find it, but we finally found it. Plot number 10. This is where we're going to be putting our potatoes this year. We've never grown nightshades here. We had us a good nematode suppressing cover crop here. Lots of organic matter in the soil. Nice soft soil for growing potatoes. I think this is going to be a good one. So hopefully that gives you some good insight there. It's kind of our process of how we determine what we're going to plant where amongst these 10 plots. Now I know everybody doesn't have the luxury of having 10 different plots that they can rotate, and so you just got to do the best you can. Even if you've just got one plot, just try to rotate segments of it. You know, you can't necessarily rotate or flip the whole thing every time or all the time, but just try to rotate segments of it. If you've got specific rows there, just don't plant the same family in the same row year after year. If you've got raised beds, it's pretty easy. Same concept as here, just on a little smaller scale. But whatever you're doing out there, just try to rotate. Try not to plant the same family in the same spot year after year. And that's going to go a long way to making it easier to grow your own food. It's going to reduce that pest and disease pressure. It's going to make you more successful in the long run. If you've got any other questions about crop rotation or garden rotations, put those in the comments below and I'll be glad to answer them for you. And if you do practice these kind of rotations, give us your tips and tricks so our other viewers can learn from you as well. I'll put some links below to our seed potatoes so you can grab some of those before we sell out. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give me a big thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Ring that bell so you get notified every time we come out with a new video. And if you did enjoy this one, check out these 2 potato planting videos right here. I think you'll really like those. They'll get you excited for potato planting season, which is going to be here before we know it. We'll see you next time.